in order for the business to accomplish what I want it to, it needs to be able to function without me being there locally, right? And at the end of the day, guys, this isn't new. It's not rocket science. Go and find somebody who is already doing what you want to do and learn from them. And that's how I've been able to shorten the learning curve and everything.
Welcome to the Going Long Podcast. We're back once again to continue to help to educate you so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. I'm your host, Billy Keels, and I am so excited that you've decided to come back and join us again for another fantastic conversation to help you create new options, create new ideas, and new choices for yourself moving forward, and doing that through the power of long distance investing. So because you are here and part of this community that continues to grow, that continues to expand, and it continues to attract amazing guests, thanks largely to your continued commitment here, and also the fact that you're sharing with us the things that you like about the podcast, the things that you'd like to see more of in the podcast, and the things you'd like to see less of. And that comes from the honest written reviews and ratings that you've left so far. So if you have not had the opportunity yet, now's the perfect time to leave your honest rating and a written review for the podcast. And if you need help, we've made it really, really easy. Just check out the show notes. There's a quick video there. You can click on the link and it'll walk you through exactly what you need to do to leave an honest written review as well as rating. So we really appreciate that, your comments, and we work really, really hard to make sure that this is the best absolute podcast so that you want to continue to come back and invest your time with us. So also, if you have missed a couple of the episodes and they're not on your phone and you want to go back and you want to watch the video version or you want to do both, we've also made that really easy for you. All you need to do is go to billykeels.com. Once again, that's billykeels.com/podcasts. You'll find every single episode there. You can watch them over and over. You can listen to them over and over. And you can even check out what all the different answers are for the guests. So go to billykeels.com/podcasts. Or just billykeels.com. Once you get there, go to the podcast tab and you'll be able to find every single conversation that we've had. So also one last thing, a number of you have mentioned that you're interested in communicating and talking to other people that have this whole conversation about personal finance and understanding more about long distance investing and things that you want to be able to do. And we are continuing now to build this club, which is a club for accredited investors. And you can go to AI, or you actually send an email to AI club@billykeels.com. Once again, this is for accredited investors only. And this is, well, in case you want to know more about accredited investors, if you don't already know, that's someone who has a net worth of $1 million, not including your personal residence, or you've made $200,000 in the previous 2 years and expected to do that this year, or as a household, $300,000 for the previous 2 years, or the $300,000 for this year as well. So there's also a test that you can take. I know a little bit less about that, but those are the 3 different ways you can become an accredited investor, and would love to have you join a part of our club, which is AIclub@billykeels.com. Just leave us a note and we'll get right back to you. So with that stated, listen, I know a lot of you have also wanted to understand, how can you continue to work at your day job at the same time, be able to create more options, more freedom for yourself. I mean, even imagine going to work every day, and one day you decide, or a couple of days you decide you don't want to go to work and you'd rather be in the mountains or at the beach. And in order to do that, you have to make sure that you have the right systems and the right processes in place, because it's very difficult or almost impossible to be in 2 places at once. So today's guest has really at a young age got a lot of insight into how that can happen, starting managing properties in high school, actually, and then working a job and going to college and being really focused on the outcomes that he was looking for. Someone who doesn't come from, wasn't born with a silver spoon in his mouth, and has worked hard and also has moved from a scarcity mindset, which is, hey, I have very little and I have to keep it for myself, to much more of an abundant mindset as to how can I go out and add value to others, helping people get closer to their goals and their dreams. And I know you're going to get a lot out of the conversation. I mean, he was even telling us a story about being in San Diego on the beach when he was closing on some property. So this is exactly the type of lifestyle that I know a lot of you are working towards and want to have. And I know you're going to get a lot of insight from today's guest, Dan Haberkost. So just after this, we're going to go ahead and get into the conversation with Dan. Whether you're an active investor or a passive investor, you really like your day job and you want to continue to go into your day job every single day feeling better, knowing that you've created the right options for yourself. At the same time, you just don't have enough time to really get your head around, spend all the hours investing long distance. Well, one way or the other, over the last number of years that I have been investing long distance, I've really understood a number of the major mistakes that you should avoid if you want to get to creating the right options for yourself much faster and being able to create more income sooner. And if you want to do that, if you want to understand more about that, I've made it really, really simple. You can just go to billykeels.com/7 mistakes to avoid. You can learn all the things that the 7 major mistakes that I've seen over and over again that I want you to avoid. Once again, you can go to billykeels.com/7 mistakes to avoid. So, you know what? If you want to crack the code on how to live and work where you want to live while spending time in the mountains and or at the beach, then guess what? Today's the conversation that you're going to want to listen to until the very last word. You know why, Going Long family? Because today's guest started and got his break in real estate as a teenager. He also had lots of early success in both landscaping as well as horticultural space. And he also went on to do and work in the sales and specialist and recruiting specialist area. And most recently, he is the owner of Front Range Land, LLC. Gives me great pleasure to welcome to today's conversation, Dan Haberkost. Dan, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, Billy. I'm excited to be here. I appreciate you having me on and hope I can provide some value to your listeners.
Well, you don't even have to hope, Dan, because I know you're going to do that. And you know what? One of the things I forgot to tell you, and I don't normally do this, but knowing that you are from the Buckeye State of Ohio, I am from Ohio. This is one of the things that I always like to just kind of give that Ohio greeting to other people. So I like to say OH. If you want to say there you go. Fantastic. So it's one of those things we like to do. And I know you're outside of Ohio, and I'm not going to tell where because you're going to get ready and tell everybody. But it's one of those things that I like to do. I've been out of the States for 20 years. And so this is one of these things that I just like to have fun and share with the Going Long family. So then, as you know, very small world, man. So as you know, I like to ask everybody the same 5 questions. You're going to get 2 in the beginning, you're going to get 3 at the end, and in the middle, the Going Long family is going to get a chance to know a lot more about you, find out more about how they can live at the beach and also live in the mountains when they can do that kind of stuff. But I want to get right into the first question, which is, where do you live in the United States, man?
Sure. So I am in Colorado Springs, Colorado. So I live right next to the Rocky Mountains. So I get to enjoy, snowboarding, mountain biking, hiking, that sort of thing. But I don't have to live in that weather. I live next to the mountains where it's very dry, warm, and sunny most of the year, at least relative to Ohio.
All right. Fantastic. And so, you know what? The next thing is really just helping us to get the show started off with some positivity. So help me understand with the Going Long family. What is the most positive thing that's happened to you in the last 24 hours?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that come to mind, but I got a really positive lead here on a house to buy and hold in the market where I do a lot of building here in Colorado. And it's got one of the best views of the lake and the mountains of all the houses in that whole town, really. And there's a lot wrong with the house, which is where the opportunity comes about. But they're all problems I know how to solve. And I'm going to go meet with the seller next week. So it looks like that might be another addition to the portfolio. So that would probably fit the bill for the last 24 hours.
All right, man. Fantastic. And I love just the mindset, even as we're getting started. So understanding, identifying problems, creating your opportunities, because these are problems that you understand how to solve. Love that, man, before we even get started. And so thanks for sharing that with us, Dan. And then one of the other things was I give myself like a couple seconds to kind of tell your story and highlight things. Now, there's a whole lot more to your story, and I just talked about a couple of different things in like 10 seconds, something like that. So what I would love for you to share with the Going Long family is your own backstory in your own words. And Dan, if you could take just a couple of seconds and make sure that you share with us, like, what are some of the major decisions that you've made up to this point in your journey? And then from there, you and I will see where the conversation goes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you highlighted some of the jobs I had growing up. So coming from the Midwest, very typical kind of lower middle class, very conservative, scarcity mindset sort of background. So I started working very young, and those jobs you went through and mentioning that I started in real estate as a teenager. When I was 16 years old, I actually managed a portfolio rentals for my boss along with his farm while he spent a good deal of the year traveling. And that experience did not make me want to get into real estate. These were C- rentals at best. There was a very confrontational dynamic between him and the tenants. So that taught me what not to do. But without going into too much detail, I worked that job for most of high school. And then in college, while going to school full time, I also ran a landscaping company. So, working 45 to 50 hours a week, full-time school, that was a lot. But I realized, hey, okay, I started working very young. I've got years of experience running other people's businesses, and I don't want to do this forever. So how do I take the skill set I've developed? I knew I was a little bit precocious, and apply that to some sort of business or investing, so that once I'm done with school, I can have more freedom, right? Because I'd never been anywhere. We didn't travel as a kid. My world was a little bigger than Ohio, right? Which is just a giant cornfield, really. So I started reading different books, podcasts, just talking to people, read about, equities and different business I could start. And for whatever reason, real estate is what really stuck with me. Like many other people, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it just was like a light bulb went off. And I said, okay, I'm going to go invest in real estate. A couple months later, I closed on my first property, the duplex I was saying I have in Ohio. Before I graduated college, I was 21. And then shortly thereafter, I ended up moving to Colorado because I wanted to climb around the Rocky Mountains and learn to snowboard and build a business out here. So that's what I did. And again, obviously this is a brief synopsis, but I quickly realized that if I wanted to buy more rental properties, I had to figure out how to make a substantial income. Making 60, 70 grand a year in a job, that doesn't cut it. So at the same time, now I've built a land and development business, which is what Front Range Land is, where I'm building houses, buying and selling land. And then that feeds the passive investing. And kind of along the lines of your whole podcast and what you're about, I've really, and especially this year, systemized the business, offloaded large parts of it to good people. And that gives me the freedom now to travel. I was in San Diego a few weeks ago and had parcels closed that all I did was wire the money and sign the DocuSign, right? And so, that's a lot squeezed into a quick little summary there, but that's kind of where I'm at now. I have the active business that feeds the passive and spend a whole lot of time doing things I love.
Well, that's fantastic, man. So, because at the end of the day, the asset that is the most precious and scarce that we have is our time. And so the fact that you are have designed and are continuing to improve on the design that you've created for your life is something that a lot of us will be able to learn a lot from in today's conversation. I'm absolutely sure. And, you mentioned a couple of things that really resonated with me to the core, to my heart, right? Because I come from, a lower middle class family in Ohio, and what little we had, it was about how do you keep it, right? Not necessarily how you share it. I mean, parents taught us to treat people in the right way, but, when I talk about financial resources, you kind of have kept as much as you could. Of course, you gave away stuff, and if it never came back, family relationships ruined and all that other kind of stuff, but we won't go down that rabbit hole. But I am just curious because you mentioned that you were in college, and I was in college when I was in college, and I was working a job as well. Like, how did you find, I guess, what was the challenge that you found in going to college and working like 40 hours a week, 45 hours a week, like just in terms of being able to get things done?
Yeah, I mean, it was not fun. I did not have the normal college experience. Let's put it that way. And, 18, 19-year-old Dan was a little bit upset about that. I remember especially the last 2 years were difficult. I didn't have much of a social life, and it was just work. And that, I think, as much as I didn't enjoy it at the time, it was important, because that we all have to have some sort of drive or motivator to go and build a business. It's not easy. You get kicked in the teeth over and over and over again. And those couple of years for me, I think, gave me the motivation to do it, because I said, okay, these last couple of years have sucked, but I'm going to make sure that I can take what I've learned, right? Because it was clear to me that I had a skill set that was fairly advanced for a 20-year-old, 21-year-old. How do I take that and go make sure that I can spend the rest of my life living and doing what I want? And so that has been a strong driving force for me. And so I got a little bit on a tangent there. I'm not sure if I answered your question, but it was just a matter of, if I wanted to go to college, I had to pay for it so I just did what I had to do. And then in hindsight, I'm glad I did, because, I may not have enjoyed those couple of years, but now I have the freedom to go and do what I want. I'm 25. So I'm not upset about it.
Yeah. And I guess a lot of it goes back to, and so no, you absolutely stayed where we wanted you, is understanding, what can those challenges be sometimes, because you want to be able to pursue higher education. And at the same time, my parents couldn't afford to pay for me to go to college. So it was about how much could I work and what loans or grants was I able to get? I mean, at the end of the day, I wanted the college experience. And I had to figure out a way to do that. Now, was my college experience like other people whose parents were able to give them credit cards and they did this and did that?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. Like, it was a very different
Yeah.
college experience. And at the same time, I appreciated it. I learned a lot.
Mhm.
I missed probably one or two extra parties, but no big deal. It is what it is. But it's really just to
Yeah.
understand more of the kind of the work ethic, the mindset that you were going through.
Mhm.
And also too, so you mentioned that you picked up Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but before that, you were also
Mhm.
looking at other different types of
Mhm.
investments. I guess, what was it about Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or what was it about the real estate experience that really made you say, this is where I want to hone in on?
I think it was so tangible, right? Owning property. And it was clear that, oh, hey, I already have a W-2 job and I paid for everything. So I don't have any debt. So I can immediately go and buy something. That was clear to me. It was, tangible, both. It's a physical asset and I knew I could go do it. And
Mhm.
then I actually had a coworker. I'm glad you said that because I almost forgot. We were at lunch one day and he goes, yeah, I just finished renovating upstairs. So the tenants moved in and my wife and I are downstairs and they're paying the mortgage. I'm like, what? What? And so, I didn't even know what the word was. Obviously, house hacking is what people call that now, but it was
Yeah.
just like, it just clicked. It's like, you can just buy these little income streams one at a time, or, scale it over time and give yourself freedom. And so it just was exciting to me as opposed to equities or, other businesses. And also quickly, as I met people within the world of real estate, I tended to find that most of them were a lot like me in that they came from maybe a lower end background, and they also just think outside the box generally. People within the world of real estate tend to be fun. Half the people I go snowboard or climb or hike with I met them through business, right? Like my CPA, he skis. He's showing me how to do backflips. So the people in real estate tend to be a lot of fun too.
Yeah, it's typically when you're going to ski on a Tuesday or Wednesday in the middle of the day, the people that are there are
Yeah.
business owners and real estate investors, or
Yep.
both.
Yep. Every Wednesday last year, I went up and I went snowboarding. Yep. Every
See?
Wednesday. Yep.
There you
Yep.
go. There you go. Just another reason. Hey, this could be the motivator for someone who's in a corporate role today to go, I got to
Yeah.
get into real estate investing because I can go ski boarding or snowboarding on Wednesdays. So perfect. So I appreciate you sharing that. And as you know, I mean, one of the things that I love talking about here, and a lot of the people that are here, the Going Long podcast, is I've been living in Europe for a really long time,
Mhm.
almost 20 years. And actually, I think it is now 20 years. I didn't even celebrate that. Maybe that's something I should do.
That's
Sorry.
awesome, though.
Sorry, I
Yeah.
should. Yeah.
It's okay.
We'll come back to that. But since I've been here, I've been exclusively investing back in real assets, tangible assets that are in the United States. And so a lot of the books said that you have to live in the same place. Now, I'm not saying that you can't live in the same place, but
Mhm.
typically it's kind of going against the grain that you can actually invest in a tangible asset and you don't have to be there to go
Mhm.
check on it every single day, every other day. And what I've found is a lot of our guests that come here are helping people to understand why they decided to get
Mhm.
involved in long distance investing actively, passively, have created a lifestyle where they don't have to actually be in the specific place. So, what was the motivation for you to actually decide that, hey, listen, investing long distance or in a place that I don't necessarily need to be is something that could make sense for my lifestyle at this point in time?
Sure. Well, that's the whole point. I'm not particularly materialistic, but I love traveling. Like I said, I didn't really get to see anything as a kid. So that's something I'm making up for now.
Mm.
So in order for the business to accomplish what I want it to, it needs to be able to function without me being there locally. Right. And at the end of the day, guys, this isn't new. It's not rocket science. Go and find somebody who is already doing what you want to do and learn from them. And that's how I've been able to shorten the learning curve and everything. So to give you an example, I have a friend, much older friend, who's been a mentor in many ways, and he owns property all over California, Utah, Nevada, Arizona, all over the West Coast and in different cities here in Colorado. And most of those properties he doesn't see for years at a time. Why? Because he has the right people and the right systems in place. And I'm working on building that and getting a lot better at building that. Like I told you, when I was in San Diego surfing a couple of weeks ago, I had some deals closed and all I had to do was wire the money and sign the docs, right? And so you can set up or buy investments, tangible, physical investments anywhere if you put the right people and processes in place, right? That's all that a business is. The biggest businesses anywhere always have the best systems and processes. Look at McDonald's, right? That's what the whole company is built off of. It's built off of such fine-tuned systems and processes that a McDouble is going to taste the same no matter where in the country you go. And they create that even with unskilled workers. Why? Because their systems and processes are set and refined, right? So having the right people matched with the right SOPs, standard operating procedures, is how you create any sort of business that can function without you, whether it's buying a real estate investment or starting a liquor store, anything, right? So that's really the key.
And knowing that that's the key, and I would even stretch it even a little bit longer. You can get that same cheeseburger or double whatever in any place in the world, because I can have one here in Barcelona, and it probably is going to taste pretty similar to the one that you have in Colorado Springs, if you have cheeseburgers, of course. But yeah, so I absolutely understand that. And so that being one of the motivators for you in terms of being able to build a business that you do not have to be physically tied to, and so that you can make up. And this is a lot of times the motivations that people have. So you mentioned very clearly in the beginning, like you didn't travel a lot when you were younger. So now this is one of the whys for you, is to be able to say, how do I build a business where I don't actually need to be there? That business is based in real estate, which is fantastic. So what is it that, what would you say has been one of the, you talked about mentoring already, but one of the biggest challenges in terms of being able to find the right people and build the right processes?
Yeah. So this somewhat answers your question, but I want to say, I think I had to get over the scarcity mentality that you were just alluding to, especially being from Ohio. I'm sure you know what it was like, but just kind of the environment I grew up with, or in, the world was always ending. Everything was always going wrong. It was always very negative and very fear-based. And it's taken me a long time to get over that. I mean, it's crazy. I'll find myself still just penny pinching, and really I'm tripping over, $100 bills to pick up pennies. And so the first thing I had to do in order to hire people was get over that and realize that, paying someone can lead to I can get a return on their time and the money and putting it in them, just like in anything else. And I'm still working on that. So that was number one. And then number two, something that helped me a little more specific and practical, I've been using the culture index. So my acquisitions manager, it's funny, I had a couple interviews, and the guy I was going to hire, I thought at the last second, I should have him take that, because I had used that in one of the jobs I worked at in college, and I've become friends with the owner, so he lets me use it. And I remember, that was really accurate. So I gave that to everyone I interviewed, and it said, absolutely do not hire him and go hire her. Hired her, and she's been a huge asset to me. So on a more practical level, some sort of personality testing does tend to help. That helped me a lot. And I know, that's helped a number of my friends who have their own businesses. So, but other than that, I would say just setting really clear expectations and figuring out what motivates the people you're potentially hiring, what is important to them. With the person I have, she's not as interested. Well, I mean, she wants to make money, but she's more excited just by learning about real estate. So separate from what she does for me, I walked her through a remodel I have going right now and kind of showed her the numbers and how I arrived at it. Right. So three things there. Number one, get over your own scarcity mentality and realize that hiring people can be a 1 + 1 = 10 sort of scenario. It can be exponential as far as what that can accomplish. Number two, I would use some sort of personality test. I like the culture index. And then number three, make sure you set clear expectations for them, but then also figure out what's important to them and try and provide that to them via, the employment or the position.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's very interesting when people assume that the only thing that someone that's working in a role or in a job is that they want to make more money.
Yes.
And because there are so many other motivations that sometimes it's just a simple thank you. Because in the role that they're working, they don't ever get a thank you, or the fact of the matter is they're learning something new, that they're intellectually stimulated. Of course, you have to be able to have your needs met, or whatever your, the expenses and things like that are. But the fact that you go beyond that to really understand, what is the person's motivation as it relates to behaviors or personalities and things like that. Yeah, I mean, it really is important that you have a character and culture fit to be able to find the right person. And then those processes, do you typically find that the process is that you just kind of get it started and then you adapt it as it goes, or do you find that you just design it so that it's perfect the first time?
Oh, absolutely. It's a learning curve. Everything, there's a learning curve, and you're going to mess up. And I'm glad you said that, because it was a little bit of a leading question, but that's okay. Because it's true with investors. So often they want a 10 out of 10 certainty that the numbers are going to work out how they expect, and that they know what's going to happen with the market. That's never going to happen. That's never going to happen. It's like my brother-in-law, my sister's husband, he's wanted to invest for years and he hasn't done it because he's an architect and he's got that really kind of detail-oriented, pedantic personality, right? He wants to know every detail. And I've met so many people like that, and you're never going to know. You're always going to make mistakes. So I expanded this obviously well beyond systems and processes, but it's true for systems and processes. The SOPs I've given my acquisitions manager have been evolved, let's put it that way. And it's true with everything. You've got to just go do it. And you're going to make mistakes along the way. I've made mistakes after many mistakes in everything I've done, but I learned and I move forward. So yes, not correct on the first time.
Okay. Yeah, definitely not correct on the first time. And thank you for taking it beyond the borders, because I actually have a number of people that, well, not a number, but in the beginning when I used to work with accredited investors, and I wanted to try to, hey, this is such an awesome deal, and And then I would realize that there are some people that literally need every single light to be green, or they'll never leave their home. And at a certain point, I'm just like, well, you know what? Just keep doing what you're doing. You do you, and I'm going to go out and help people that actually want to do something different. Because as soon as you look for perfection, and I'm a recovering perfectionist, by the way, you realize that you are. And you talked about it before, you're pinching pennies and blowing dollars is what I used to hear all the time. And you're trying to get everything perfect. And at a certain point, you have to get the majority of it right, and then just move on and be willing to have what I call a positive ROS, which is a return on sleep. It's the one metric that nobody talks about. Everyone's like, I got an IRR and the NPV and the ROI and this and that. And I'm like, but the ROS, the return on sleep. If it's positive, do it. If it's not, don't. Anyway, so I don't want to get too much on that tangent, but you opened that one up, and I appreciate you talking to them there. Wow, don't you just love this conversation? This is amazing. This is fantastic. And so just really quickly, I just wanted to remind you, for those of you that are looking to create more options for yourself, get there faster, and do that with long distance investing, make sure that you go to billykeels.com/7 mistakes to avoid, so that you can avoid all those mistakes, get to your goals faster and sooner. Once again, that's billykeels.com/7 mistakes to avoid. Now back to the conversation. So, one of the other things that you did talk about, so maybe you could talk to us about the way that you have very strategically built your business, because you were talking earlier that you are looking at the front end business and land, and using that to feed your passive. And the reason I'm asking you this question, Dan, is that a lot of times we have many people that are corporates, busy, high paid professionals, and tend to think like this is the way that you can do things. The majority of them that are here listening, they're part of the Going Along family, are looking for those new other ideas. And you can actually build this type of business that feeds into this, that ultimately gives you more freedom, so that you can go be on the beach in San Diego while your business is moving. Maybe talk to us a little bit about some of the strategy that you had behind the way that your business is structured.
Sure. So I think one of the most important things is picking something that is scalable to a very, very high degree. And at that scale, it can still be done with basically the same time and effort it took at a very, very small scale. So let me give you just a real life example. In the land business, some of the first parcels I bought for a couple $100, sold for $1,000 or $2,000. Not very significant. But then I was buying for $1,000, selling for $6,000 or $7,000. And then I've been over and over and over again buying for 10 to 14 and selling for 28 to 35 over and over and over again. And on Thursday, or tomorrow, I guess that would be, I'm going to go meet with a guy that has an entire subdivision where if I can put one of those deals together, which I will, whether or not it's this one or the next one,
Yep.
I can make millions of dollars in one transaction.
Mm.
So I think that is one of the most important parameters for whatever it is you choose to do. Once you learn on the baby deals, those same concepts are applicable to much larger deals. And that's how you go and instead of making $100 or $500 an hour, how do you go make $5,000 an hour, $10,000 an hour? And by choosing something that's infinite, well, not infinitely, but almost infinitely scalable, the way that many avenues within real estate are. And then the second thing I would say to that is making sure that, oh gosh, I lost my train of thought there. What was I going to say?
Well, just the way that the way that you
Yeah.
were being able to scale, finding things that you can, because you're doing the same amount of work, and
Yeah.
the
Oh,
result is multiplied by 10 or 20 or whatever the case may be.
yeah. And I would also want it to rely more on systems and processes than people. That would be the second thing. You said in hindsight, you talked about strategy. We all can make ourselves sound like geniuses in hindsight, right? Some of this has just fallen into place, but that concept of whatever that you're doing being scalable, right? That's really important. And also what I want to say is that it doesn't necessarily rely on you, right?
Mm.
If the whole business, so I have a friend who's a physical therapist, and he's the subject matter expert, right? And he can't really offload or sell the business to someone else because it's all based on him and his personal relationships.
Yeah.
For me, I would never want to do that. Now, maybe you can do that and then take the income and put it into something scalable that can be systemized and offloaded. But yeah, so number one, scalable. Number two, something that isn't dependent on you. It can be more dependent on systems and processes that you can put other people into. So on the passive side, right, land is my active business, land and development. On the passive side, I'm working to get out of these single family houses or small multifamily and move into much larger commercial investments, and haven't succeeded in that yet. That's a longer term process here, but what I'm doing is learning from people who are already there, and that's probably going to be the biggest goal for me here going into next year. But yeah, so those are the two main things I think are most important.
So, and I appreciate you, focusing on the process and systems, as well as those that can be scalable and not necessarily on people. People are an important part of those processes, but the processes and systems needs to be in place. Before we go into the going long final three, you've mentioned something a couple of times, and I love the mindset, Dan, because you've said that, you're just talking about right now that the multifamily, you're moving out of it and it hasn't been successful yet. And earlier you were talking about something that you hadn't done yet. And a lot of that is mindset, man. So what is the work that you have done around mindset to realize, you were kind of joking with my leading question that, hey, look, it's an ongoing process. So what is it that the work that you've done to get to this mindset that says, okay, well, you know what? I'm not there yet, but I'm going to get there because that's where I know I'm going there.
Yeah. That's a good question. So number one, I'll say confidence builds just by doing over the long term, right? And then keeping the promises you make to yourself. I think that is very, very important. The reason that I mean, unless I get hit by a bus tomorrow, I'm going to go do exactly what I just told you I'm going to do. And the reason I have that confidence is because I have kept the promises I make to myself, whether it's about getting up and going to the gym every morning, or making uncomfortable phone calls, or cold calling that lady to buy that house I just told you about. I think that's extremely important, because you can lie to everyone else, you can put it on a front on social media, but you can't lie to yourself. So that's where the confidence comes from, is I know if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And regardless of whether you or anyone else believes that, I know I'm going to do it, right? So that I think is important in having self-worth and confidence. And then on top of that, as far as working on changing your mindset, if you're in a place where you don't have a lot of confidence in yourself, and maybe that scarcity mindset where you always think the world is ending, you're going to lose all your money, I think just being aware, a bit of introspection is really important, and trying to stop yourself every time you go down that rabbit hole, right? As opposed to, many people have these thoughts and they don't even realize it because there's no self-awareness, right? They spend all day worrying, or, they have most of the distresses in their life are just in their head and they never actually happen, right? I'm thinking of a couple of my family members as I say this, where they're always worrying and so little of what actually comes up ever, or comes up in their head ever actually manifests in reality. So yeah, being self-aware and controlling those thoughts when they hit you, because again, every now and then I still suddenly think the whole world's going to fall apart. I'm going to lose all my money. The tenants are all going to stop paying. That is what I was raised on. So that takes a lot of time to get out of that place. But stopping those thoughts and saying, wait, no, that's ridiculous. And actually, I have a business coach, and what he said to me is, he said, label that voice in your head. That's your 6-year-old self trying to protect you. So for me, I think of that as Daniel, right? I haven't gone by my full name since I was a little kid. So I'm like, oh, there's the 6-year-old me talking, and then that's enough. We're past that. And so yeah, that was a long answer, but I think number one, confidence comes from keeping the promises you make to yourself, and then number two, being self-aware and stopping yourself when you go down those negative trains of thought.
No, yeah, and it's such a big part of mindset. And you talk about not just what you're reading, but what you're doing. Mm-hmm. You've talked about mentors, so that's also learning from people who've been there before you. And this is like mindset. Some people are very fortunate to do it on their own. Very few of those people do it successfully, but it sounds like you're on the right track. And I appreciate you unpacking that and sharing that with the Going Long family. So,
sure,
Dan. Here's the thing, man. We got to get into the Going Long final 3. And I never ask the Going Long final 3 unless you as the guest tell me that you're ready for me to ask you the Going Long final 3. So are you ready? You know what? I knew you'd be ready for this, man. Here we go. So listen. So the first of the Going Long final 3, we started with you over in Colorado Springs. I want to bring it back to this side of the pond over here in Europe. Help us understand, what is your favorite European city that you've either visited or is still on your bucket list to visit?
I can't think of the city, but I want to go snowboard in Switzerland. LAAX is the name of the resort. I see it all over social media. So I want to go to Switzerland. There's a resort there. I see it all over social media. A lot of the top snowboarders are there. I would love to go there and see if I could ride those slopes.
You will, yeah. It's not if you can. You will be able to.
I know. Yeah, I know.
It's all good. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll include it. So we'll come up with an amazing place in Switzerland. I've been to a couple of really cool places there in skiing, although my skiing is not very good.
It's all right.
But it's all good. So eventually I'll get to where I want to be.
Sure.
So listen. So here's the thing. So question number 2 really has to do with the things that I've observed with successful people. And you're a very successful person, and one of the things that I've noticed, Dan, is that very successful people typically are very successful because they, unlike most people, don't make any mistakes, and they get to the top of the pinnacle because they're hang on a second. Did I do that again? I get all nervous, and I usually want to ask the question, and I kind of do that maybe by design. I do it kind of by design. It's sort of a joke. It's sort of an inside joke with me in the Going Long family. I appreciate you being so kind. But here's the thing, like all jokes aside, one of the things that I really have noticed about very successful people is that successful people make a lot more mistakes than most people. They make a whole lot more mistakes than most people. But honestly, they do one thing very, very differently. And that's the fact that they take a moment, whether you call it a learning opportunity, a mistake, whatever, they take a moment to really say, what was the lesson that I need to learn, and then adapt and put into practice so that this same thing doesn't happen again. So what I would love for you to share is, what is not the mistake that you made, but think about a mistake or learning opportunity that you had. But most importantly, what was the one lesson that that the Going Long family needs to know what that lesson is, so that we don't make that same mistake moving forward?
Yeah. And I think it comes back to something I've already harped on, but I'm going to say it again because it's so relevant to myself. And I think a lot of your listeners too. It's the things I missed out on, and I'll get more specific in a moment, but the things I've missed out on because I was in the scarcity mindset, the fear-based thinking, right? So I look at having hired this acquisitions manager, and I'm kicking myself for not having done that well before when I did. I think about my fear in spending marketing dollars to get deals. And in hindsight, I wish I would have tripled what I spent in marketing dollars to get deals. Well, at the same time, that makes me think, well, okay, what am I doing today that I'm going to regret? Not necessarily regret, but realize I should have done more of down the road. But I think spending money on good people and marketing. If we're good people is in anything, any business, but marketing specifically in real estate, getting deals is the lifeblood of your business. So the overarching concept here is that not letting fear rule all your decisions, right? The world is not ending. There's always opportunity. And if the market crashes tomorrow, there's still a million other ways to make millions of dollars. So that's kind of the overarching mistake that I made, is just being afraid too much and thinking about how do I save a penny and tripping over $100 bill. And then just specifically how that applies in my business, I'd say, number one, I should spend more money. I should have spent more money on marketing sooner. And then number two, I should have hired people sooner.
Awesome. So really focused on minimizing the scarcity mentality mindset,
Yes.
recognizing on what are the outcomes that you want to be able to do. And it has manifested itself in your life with things like being able to find and onboard the right person, and also being able to manifest itself through increasing spend, which will actually help to attract more of the opportunities that you're looking for. So love that, man.
Yes.
Love that. And so lastly, man, we're going to go into the very last question, Dan, of the Going Long Final 3, which is really about helping the Going Long family understand about how we can build our knowledge base or feed our minds. So what is one book that you would recommend to the Going Long family?
The Most Important Thing by Howard Marks. I would also read his memos. I don't know if you're familiar with him. I think he's one of Charlie Munger's buddies. I read Poor Charlie's Almanac, and then Howard Marks's books were recommended in that book. And his thinking and his writing is so clear, concise, and logical. I every time he has a memo, I read it, reread it a third time. So I highly recommend The Most Important Thing by Howard Marks and any of his writing.
Right on. The Most Important Thing by Howard Marks. Fantastic. Appreciate it. Wow. These conversations go by so fast, man. It is just unbelievable. And, I just think about you sharing from the very beginning, at 16, and you're working and you're thinking about what are you going through, but you also talk about that background and having grown up in more of a scarcity mindset. You knew that you wanted to get to college. At the same time, you had to work for it. So you were doing the 45, 50 hours and going at the same time, working on getting your degree. You maybe didn't have the same experience as everybody, but everybody's university experience is unique. You talked about how that Rich Dad, Poor Dad really helped to change your perspective on things. And you were looking at, real assets versus equities, and really realized that you wanted to put more of your time and your energy here. You got involved in getting that duplex. You got involved in actually moving away, because that's one of the things that you didn't get a chance to do, was do a lot of traveling. And so you left Ohio, you moved out to Colorado, you're getting your own business started. You build up a structure which says, hey, listen, I'm going to work on the land. I'm going to have the development that's going to also feed into my passive incomes. And even though your portfolio is not where you want it to be yet, you're still working each and every day to move forward. At the same time, you're building a business that's built on sound processes, great systems, the right people on board that allows you the freedom, the options, the choices to be where you want to be while your business is still functioning. You can even be in Switzerland, in somewhere in the Alps and skiing, or you can be in San Diego on the beach and signing papers that need to be done, because you've got the right things in order. And I know there's so many people from the Going Long family are thinking, wow, you know what? Dan mentioned that, and that was really awesome. And he was talking about this, and I want to find out more about what Dan is doing, how he's built this whole lifestyle design together. And so I would love for you to share with me and the entire Going Long family, what's the best way that we can find out more about how to get in touch with you and what you have going on?
Yeah, just started a YouTube channel answering a lot of questions that I get asked all the time. So no one really watches those yet, but they're there. So Dan Haberkost on YouTube. I'm on Instagram and Facebook, Dan Haberkost. See lots of pictures of mountains and then just deals I'm doing.
All right, fantastic. Dan Haberkost. And do me a favor, everybody, when you reach out to Dan, let him know that, hey, listen, that you saw him, you heard him here on the Going Long podcast. So he knows you're part of the Going Long podcast family, and you guys can kick the conversation going, and makes it that much easier for the two of you. So listen, Dan, with that, man, I really appreciate you investing your time with me and the entire Going Long family today, man. Thank you so very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Billy. This was fun.
All right, fantastic. And listen, just a couple of words for the Going Long family. Listen, I am really looking forward to welcoming you back on the very next conversation. So until then, go out and make it a great day, and thank you very much. Wow, don't you love hearing from top-notch experts in the field? You know, when I was getting started, I really wish that I would have had access to such experts. And even more, I wish they would have given me like a really simple list of things to follow so that I could have gotten to my goals much faster and been much happier even sooner. So that's why I've created for you the 7 things that you should avoid in order to be successful in long distance investing. And you can pick that up really easily by going to billykeels.com/7 things to avoid. And also, if you liked today's episode, don't forget to leave a 5-star review. I'm looking forward to seeing you on our very next episode, so go out and make it a great day.